I was 7 months pregnant, my swollen feet dragging with each step as I carried what felt like the weight of the world in those grocery bags up 3 flights of stairs to our apartment. The plastic handles dug into my palms, leaving angry red marks that would linger for hours, just like the sting of my husband's words always did. Down below, I could hear the familiar sounds of gunfire and explosions from his video game, the occasional burst of laughter from his online friends cutting through the thin walls of our walk-up. By the time I reached our door, my breath came in ragged gasps, my maternity shirt clinging to my back with sweat, the baby kicking fiercely as if protesting the strain. Alan didn't even look up when I entered, his eyes fixed on the screen where virtual soldiers ran across a battlefield, far more engaging than his very real, very pregnant wife struggling before him. Empty energy drink cans littered the coffee table like monuments to his laziness, the metallic tang of them mixing with the smell of takeout boxes from last night's dinner, the dinner I'd cleaned up while he went straight back to his game. "Could you help me put these away?" I asked, my voice already carrying the resignation of knowing the answer. He waved a hand dismissively. "In the middle of something important here," as his character on screen took out an enemy player, his friends whooping in his headset. So I made trip after trip back down those stairs, each journey harder than the last, my belly making it impossible to see my feet, my back screaming in protest. On the 6th trip, my vision blurred at the edges as I hauled a bag full of canned goods, my ankles so swollen they threatened to spill over the edges of my shoes. When I finally collapsed onto a kitchen chair, my entire body trembling with exhaustion, Alan finally turned his attention from the game, not to ask if I was okay, not to thank me, but to look me up and down with open disgust and say the words that would change everything. "Jesus, you're getting disgusting to look at. Better lose that weight fast after the baby, or I'll find someone who actually takes care of herself." Through his headset, I heard the muffled laughter of his friends, the ones he'd wanted to hear this, the audience he'd performed for. In that moment, something inside me broke open. Not into pieces, but into clarity. I saw with sudden, brutal honesty every red flag I'd ignored for 5 years, the way he'd slowly isolated me from friends by mocking them until I stopped inviting them over. The jokes about my appearance that always had just enough truth to hurt. The promises to help around the house that evaporated by the next morning. The credit card statements I'd found with charges I didn't recognize. This wasn't just a bad day. This was who he truly was, and I had been making excuses for him since the day we met. I walked over to where he sat, pressed a kiss to his sweaty forehead, and said I needed a shower. The confusion on his face almost made me laugh. He'd expected tears, begging, maybe an argument, not this quiet acceptance. In the shower, with the water drowning out any sound, I let myself cry for the first time in years, not the careful, silent tears I'd shed into my pillow so many nights before, but great, heaving sobs that came from somewhere deep and wounded. But mixed with the sadness was a white-hot rage that surprised me with its intensity. I thought of our baby girl growing inside me, the daughter who would learn what to expect from men by watching how her father treated me. The daughter who might one day find herself 7 months pregnant and climbing stairs alone while some man told her she was disgusting. That thought, more than any insult Alan could hurl at me, hardened my resolve. When I emerged from the bathroom, I dressed carefully in my softest maternity clothes, packed my hospital go bag, the one I'd prepared weeks early because I'd always been the responsible one, gathered my important documents from where I'd hidden them in a tampon box. He never looked there, and told Alan I needed some air. He barely glanced up from his game. I walked out of that apartment with nothing but my purse, my documents, and the life inside me, and I didn't look back. The hotel room I checked into that night was nothing special, a generic chain with scratchy sheets and a view of the parking lot. But it was the most beautiful place I'd ever seen because it was mine alone. As I lay in that unfamiliar bed, my hands resting on my belly where our daughter kicked restlessly, I made a plan. Not an emotional, reactive plan, but the kind of careful strategy I'd use to manage our household while Alan played video games. Over the next month, while pretending everything was normal, I would quietly record Alan's verbal abuse on my phone when he didn't know I was listening, move my direct deposit to a new account at a different bank, slowly withdraw cash back when grocery shopping to build an emergency fund, research family lawyers during my lunch breaks at work, and find a small apartment I could afford on my own. Returning to that apartment the next day was one of the hardest things I'd ever done. Alan acted like nothing had happened, like he hadn't fundamentally altered our marriage with his cruelty. When I tentatively brought up his comment, he rolled his eyes. "You're so sensitive lately. It was just a joke." Then came the master stroke, the reversal I should have seen coming but still took my breath away. Do you have any idea how hard this pregnancy has been for me? For him, the man who hadn't attended a single doctor's appointment, who slept through my morning sickness, who played video games while I worked full-time and managed our entire household. But instead of arguing, I apologized. I told him I was just tired and hormonal. I watched the relief flood his face. He thought he'd won, that I would continue being the compliant wife who accepted his behavior. Little did he know, that moment was when I truly began to leave him. The following weeks were an exhausting double life. I smiled as I cooked his favorite meals, nodded as he complained about his bandmates, pretended to laugh at his jokes, all while documenting every cruel comment, every financial irregularity, every broken promise. I discovered he'd opened a credit card in my name and racked up $5,000 in debt for gaming equipment. I found messages to his friends bragging about how I'd let myself go, but he'd knock me back into shape after the baby. I recorded him telling his mother I was crazy with pregnancy hormones when she asked why I seemed so quiet. Through it all, my belly grew, my daughter reminding me with every kick why I was doing this. The day Alan left for his father's birthday weekend, I executed my plan with military precision. My sister arrived with a rental truck within minutes of his departure. Alan's younger brother, Rory, the only one in his family who'd ever called him out on his behavior, showed up to help move furniture. We worked for 12 straight hours, emptying that apartment of everything that was truly mine. The books I'd collected since college, the photo albums from before we met, the baby items I'd purchased with my own money. The most satisfying moment came when I unplugged Alan's precious gaming PC, the one he'd bought with my stolen credit, and packed it carefully in its original box. Rory carried it to the truck without a word, his jaw set in quiet anger. On the kitchen counter, I left divorce papers, printouts of the fraudulent credit card charges, a USB drive with audio recordings, and a single note, "Find someone better from your couch. I already have." Then I changed my number, blocked him on all social media, and disappeared into my new life. When Lily was born 3 weeks early, my sister by my side, instead of the man who'd promised to love me in sickness and in health, I thought that would be my happiest moment. But it was just the beginning. In the months that followed, I discovered a strength I never knew I had. I fought Alan in court with documentation so thorough, even the judge seemed impressed. I got primary custody when he failed to show up for 3 consecutive visitation hearings. I built a home for my daughter filled with love and respect instead of walking on eggshells. And when Lily was 6 months old, when I'd finally started to feel like myself again, I did one last thing for the woman I'd been that day on the stairs. I booked a beach vacation with some of the money the court awarded me from Alan's hidden assets. As the ocean waves crashed nearby, my sister snapped a photo of me in a bikini, my body forever changed by pregnancy, marked by stretch marks and a C-section scar, but finally mine again. I sent that photo to Alan with a single line, "Already slimming down, don't worry." Then I blocked him before he could respond. That photo wasn't revenge, it was a declaration. A message to myself as much as to him that I would never again let anyone make me feel small. Today, when I watch Lily take her first wobbly steps across our safe, happy apartment, I think back to that exhausted woman hauling groceries up 3 flights of stairs. I wish I could tell her how strong she was about to become.